హాయ్ అండి, అందరూ ఎలా ఉన్నారు? మీరు కనుక ఈ ఛానల్ని కొత్తగా చూస్తున్నట్లయితే వెల్కమ్ టు అవర్ ఛానల్. నా పేరు సింధు. నేను చేస్తున్న probiotic రెసిపీస్కి చాలా మంచి రెస్పాన్స్ వస్తుందండి. గట్ ఇష్యూస్ ఉన్న వాళ్ళందరూ కనెక్ట్ అవుతున్నారు. లైక్ గ్యాస్, బ్లోటింగ్, ఐబీడీ, ఐబిఎస్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉన్నవాళ్ళు. వీళ్ళు అడిగే మెయిన్ క్వశ్చన్ ఏంటి అంటే, ఈ probiotic డ్రింక్స్ తాగితే మా ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ తగ్గుతాయా లేదా, మేము తీసుకోవచ్చా తీసుకోకూడదా అని అడుగుతున్నారు. తీసుకుంటున్న వాళ్ళు కొంతమంది డైజెషన్ బాగుంటుంది అంటున్నారు, కొంతమందికి ఏమో గ్యాస్, బ్లోటింగ్ ఎక్కువ అవుతుంది అని అంటున్నారు. సో ఇక్కడ ఏంటి అంటే, గట్ హెల్త్ని ఇంప్రూవ్ చేయడానికి ఈ probiotic డ్రింక్స్ అనేవి హెల్ప్ అవుతాయి. కాకపోతే ఇది ఒక్కటే సొల్యూషన్ కాదు. గట్ ఇష్యూస్ రావడానికి చాలా రకాల రీజన్స్ అనేవి ఉంటాయి. సో ఆ రూట్ కాజ్ ఏంటో ఫైండ్ చేయాల్సి ఉంటుంది. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్కి స్టొమక్ యాసిడ్ ఎక్కువ ఉండటం కానీ, ఓవర్ వెయిట్ ఉండటం కానీ, థైరాయిడ్ ప్రాబ్లము, ఇలా ఇంకా చాలా కండిషన్స్ వల్ల గట్ హెల్త్ ఇష్యూస్ అనేవి వస్తాయి. అవి తెలుసుకొని ఫిక్స్ చేసుకోవాల్సి ఉంటుంది. నేను మాత్రం న్యూట్రిషనిస్ట్ని కాదండి. అంటే ఆ ప్రాబ్లంకి ఏం చేయాలి, ఈ ప్రాబ్లంకి ఏం చేయాలి అని నన్ను అడుగుతున్నారు. మాధవ్ గారు అయితే ఫంక్షనల్ న్యూట్రిషనిస్ట్, రూట్ కాజ్ మీద వర్క్ చేస్తూ ఉంటారు. నేను కాన్సన్ట్రేట్ చేసేది ఏంటి అంటే ఫుడ్స్ మీద, గట్ హెల్త్ రెసిపీస్ మీద, ఇంకా ఇంట్లోనే హోల్ ఫుడ్స్తో ఎలా కుక్ చేసుకోవాలి, జంక్ ఫుడ్ అయినా సరే బ్యాడ్ ఇంగ్రీడియంట్స్ని తగ్గించుకొని, లైక్ ఇప్పుడు ఐస్ క్రీమ్ రెసిపీ చేశాను చూడండి, ఒక 4 ఇంగ్రీడియంట్స్ మాత్రమే వేస్ట్ చేశాను. కానీ బయట మాత్రం అదే టేస్ట్తో ఐస్ క్రీమ్ కొనుక్కోవాలి అంటే 10 to 20+ ఇంగ్రీడియంట్స్తో ఐస్ క్రీమ్ అనేది ఉంటుంది. అదే ఇంట్లో చేసుకున్నాం అనుకోండి, చాలా బ్యాడ్ ఇంగ్రీడియంట్స్ తగ్గించుకొని మనము జస్ట్ 4 ఇంగ్రీడియంట్స్తో చేసుకున్నాం చూడండి, అలాగే జంక్ ఫుడ్ అయినా సరే మంచిగా చేసుకునేలాగా అలాగా నేను చేసి మీకు చూపిస్తూ ఉంటాను, మీతో షేర్ చేసుకుంటూ ఉంటాను. మీరు ఇంకా ఆ ఐస్ క్రీమ్ వీడియోని చూడకపోతే వెళ్ళి చూసేయండి. సో మీకు హెల్త్ రిలేటెడ్గా ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉంటే మిస్టర్ మాధవ్ ఛానల్ని వాచ్ చేయండి. అదే ఫుడ్ మీద, ఇంకా probiotic రెసిపీస్ మీద ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉంటే తెలుగు సూపర్ మామ్స్ ఛానల్ని వాచ్ చేయండి. నిన్న గట్ మైక్రోబయోమ్ టెస్ట్ గురించి మాధవ్ గారు ఎంజాయ్ అనే యూఎస్ కంపెనీతో డిస్కస్ చేశారు. ఆ వీడియోని యాడ్ చేశాను, మీకు ఇంట్రెస్ట్ ఉంటే చూడొచ్చు. ఈ వీడియో చూస్తే గట్ హెల్త్ మీద మీకు కొంచెమైనా క్లారిటీ వస్తుంది. ప్లీజ్ వాచ్ ఫుల్ వీడియో. మళ్ళీ ఇంకొక మంచి వీడియోతో కలుసుకుందాం. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫర్ వాచింగ్ అండ్ సబ్స్క్రైబ్ ఫర్ మోర్ వీడియోస్.
Yeah, it should be okay.
Recording. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's doing a transcript and a recording, so we have both.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let's start it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to know what was your inspiration to start this gut microbiome test? Like how you entered into the gut related testing and all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's personal because from a young age, I've basically always wanted to be in health. I had cancer when I was about 5 years old, so that's where was my first experience with receiving care, understanding what it's like to have uncertainty, and it led to this very early desire to pursue a career that's helping people. I know it sounds very cheesy, but it's true. And ever since then, you know, I've worked in ambulances as a medical tech, studied science, volunteered, all these different things. And at the same time, I had a lot of friends and family who were struggling with inflammatory bowel disease. So in and out of the hospital, years of not knowing what was wrong, many different surgeries. And it wasn't until a couple of years later, and this is actually about 3 or 4 years ago at this point, that I experienced my own severe inflammation issues. And that's when it became clear that these aren't isolated incidents. You know, these are things that a lot of people are dealing with, whether they be complex inflammatory conditions such as IBD, Crohn's colitis, to my condition where, you know, I had advanced pruritus and, you know, mast cell activation and you know, felt like I was allergic to everything. That's where the motivation came from, to really help people address these unspoken health battles, these things that a lot of people deal with, but they typically don't talk about it. And also bring to the forefront that the gut is quite connected to all these things. You know, the gut doesn't live in isolation. And that's essentially one of the core beliefs, is that by addressing your gut health, you can have huge impacts on your overall health and your overall well-being, not just your gastrointestinal symptoms.
Yeah, that is what I observed in my services.
Mm-hmm.
Then whenever I receive some client, finally if it is some issue, but finally it's going to the gut related issue.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
psoriasis, skin diseases, like anxiety, depression, everything is finally to the gut. And after COVID, it become more means like people are struggling more. Not sure what was the link in between the COVID and like why the issues are rising after COVID. I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah,
but, we saw a lot of that, definitely.
Yeah. So like means like you studied related to the health, means like your qualification.
Yeah, I mean, my background specifically is in pharmacology. So when we started, I was working in a lab. When we first started, it was just me and one other person. I was actually the one who was receiving the stool samples, processing them, and preparing them for sequencing. And then my co-founder was the one that developed the initial algorithms we were using for analysis. So very comfortable. I have more of a life science background. And that's really where the initiation of the company came, both this marrying of how do we bring something that's currently only existing at a research level into a space where now the average everyday person can get benefit from it. So it was a very active decision to say we're going to make a wellness tool as opposed to a diagnostic, because diagnostic is going to take another 10 years before we get there. And I have aspirations for that, one day, but for now, wellness tool is really the best way that we can provide value to people. And, now we have 3 doctors on the team. We have PhD level researchers, software developers. So we have quite a complete team now, because even though we're a wellness product, we want to make sure that we're doing everything with a strong academic and medical perspective. So we're setting ourselves up for success in the future.
Awesome. Nice to know. So yeah, and I have a question. Like, see, I have clients all over the world, but most of my clients are related to India.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want to know, like, see, I was using other services already, but I was interested in Enjoy because of you, means like in the product it was mentioned like you are collecting 3 samples. Why is that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons. So one is, coming from a research background, I like to do things with multiples, right? Even when you take your blood pressure, you do it twice, and then you take an average of the 2. So, it made no sense to me that most companies are only taking 1 sample, because even if that sample passes, the quality checks and so on before a result is provided, you have no idea if that, somebody collected it wrong or if there was some other type of error and so on. So the most basic answer is just to make sure that there wasn't any type of sample collection or experimentation error. But the more important reason is that it allows us to see how the microbiome is changing over time. So the microbiome, as you know, is super dynamic. So being able to see, this was your microbiome on your first day, this is your microbiome, let's say a minimum of 5 days later, and then this is your microbiome 5 days after that, we can start to see how these changes are occurring at the same time while we're understanding your diet, the symptoms you're experiencing, your mental health, and your general lifestyle and well-being. So it allows us to make connections between something that's very quantitative, so your microbiome and how it's changing, to something that's a little bit more qualitative, which is how you're perceiving your health and any symptoms you're experiencing. And that's very powerful. No other company is taking more than 1 sample. No other company is doing continuous kind of health check-ins throughout the period so that we can make those connections. So we find that as a very unique way that we can allow ourselves to provide very personalized recommendations. So not just, you have these bacteria, you should try and eat these things, but you have this microbiome, you have these symptoms, this seems to be an important area of focus for you. How do we develop very, very personalized recommendations to help support that goal?
Okay, got it. And I want to know, like, is there anything particular, like, see, your data is related to North America. So if someone who is living in India, if they want to do the test, or like people are migrated, means like if people are migrated long time back, how much time it takes to migrate our gut microbiome? Like, I mean, I was suggesting tests who are living in India from the Indian company called Buckspeak, but people who are living in North America, they are also asking me like, okay, we will go to India for vacation and we will do test over there. So is it worth to do like that, or because they are living here?
Right.
environment is completely different in Indian environment, and the food habits, everything, air
Right.
quality, everything is different. So how it will impact?
Yeah, so there's definitely an impact. A lot of those changes will happen relatively immediately because your diet is most likely going to be changing country to country. There's different environmental microbes. There's changes in daily routines. There's changes in lifestyles. So the short term changes that you'll see typically mean that a lot of the native strains that might be present in India might start to become less prominent, whereas like more North American strains might come out. And then your gut diversity is going to shift. Your diversity might not necessarily go up or down. It just might look a little bit different because of that. So in terms of the type of data that's used for these reports, a lot of the scores are actually agnostic of where your microbiome is coming from. So we can tell you about your diversity because it's a metric understanding, how many different bacteria do you have inside of your microbiome. We can tell you about how stable your microbiome is because we take those 3 samples and we can see how it's changing or not. Other scores are looking at data from people who are sick. And the interesting thing is people who have, let's say, Crohn's disease, even if they're from different countries, their microbiome, because it's a very specific state, it's an inflamed gut, it actually only allows very specific types of bacteria to live in that environment. So people who are sick, regardless of the country they're coming from, tend to actually have somewhat similar microbiomes. And that's actually how we've developed our gut health score in our report. So we're able to see how similar is your microbiome to someone who has Crohn's disease, colitis, for example, to your microbiome, including also people who might have irritable bowel syndrome, people who are healthy. So for the most part, where your geography of where you're coming from isn't a huge concern. But there will definitely be changes, a lot of them due to diet and lifestyle changes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and see, we know most of the diseases are linked to gut health. What are the main type of diseases we can identify based on this gut test?
Yeah, definitely. So at the core, a lot of them are related to dysbiosis and inflammation. So what our test is really focused on is mental health conditions, similarity to people with inflammatory bowel disease, similarity to metabolic syndrome, similarity to systemic inflammation, and so on. So it's a lot of these conditions that are again showing that the gut is connected to the mind, the gut is connected to the heart, the gut is connected to the liver. So those are the key areas that we focused. But a lot of them are grounded in inflammation, essentially. But the microbiome is, connected to essentially every single condition that's been out there. Of course, in some far more than others, but those are the primary areas that we focus.
Okay. So, and I want to know, is our test based on DNA or RNA?
So we're looking at DNA. So we're looking at the bacterial DNA in your samples. So that's how we're able to identify which bacteria are there. And then the next step is how many, and then what are they actually doing? What is their activity? So are they there and present and able to produce vitamins, for example? Are they able to produce short chain fatty acids? Are they able to break down fiber? These different things.
Okay. And do we have a technology to find whether the bacteria DNA, based on bacteria DNA, is it alive or not? Because
is it alive?
Yeah, is it alive? Means we can see the presence of the DNA of the certain bacteria, but can we find it is alive or not?
So, you're saying from the DNA itself?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So from the DNA itself, no, not really. What we do is when we are collecting the sample, though, we make sure that all of the bacteria are lysed, so they're killed at that moment. So we're making sure that they aren't growing while they're being transported. So the sample we receive is as similar to exactly how it is inside of your gut at that period in time. So essentially, there's a liquid in there that stabilizes the solution, and there's actually some beads in there that we ask you to shake. And that mixture will make sure that it's almost putting a pause on where the microbiome is in that point in time.
Okay, so it's not doing means like extra cultural things after getting out of the
Yeah, so that's how we make sure that there's no issues with not having refrigeration, for example. So even between your samples, you do not need to refrigerate them. We've done several tests, and they're stable for 30 to 90 days at room temperature. If you refrigerate them, it's many months. If you freeze them, it's basically stable forever. So yeah, they're quite stable with the types of sample vials we use.
What was the time period to collect the stool sample for the 3 times?
So we recommend a minimum of 5 days between each sample. Typically, people stick to that, or they go up to around a little bit over a week, because generally we suggest people doing all of their sample collections within a 30-day period. So it's really up to you. You know, if you like that idea of them taking them over a longer period of time, you can have it be, you know, every 12, 13 days or something. So it's about a month. Or you can stick to kind of our standard protocol, which is every 5 days you take a sample.
Okay. So do they need to stop any supplementations or any medications, or they can continue whatever they're doing?
So it depends on the intention. If you just had a surgery, if you just had a colonoscopy, you just had antibiotics, we do give recommendations around how long you should wait before taking your samples. But for example, we have a lot of people who are taking NSAIDs or other pain medications daily or every other day, and it's just part of their routine. We actually recommend not stopping those, because that's representative of what your microbiome typically looks like, because you're always taking these things. So it's not really a need to, you know, change the period or wait if this is part of your regular routine. If it's a medication you're only taking for a short period, we would suggest waiting, because then it wouldn't be representative.
Okay, got it. So yeah, and I have a few other questions I write down. And
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So how long it takes to get the results? Means like after, if we submitted the sample for in 20 days, we collected
Right.
in days, and if we submit it, how many days it will take?
So it typically takes anywhere between 3 to 5 weeks to get your results back. We're actually hoping to make that even faster before the end of the year. So it'd be kind of around 3 weeks would be the goal, ideally, when we get to that point. But right now it's around 3 to 5 weeks to get your results.
Okay. And one more question is like, mostly my clients mostly ask me, can we find H. pylori infection as well with the gut microbiome test?
Yes. So we actually have a section of the report that's focused on pathogenic bacteria. So we include H. pylori, we include Campylobacter jejuni, and several other bacteria that have been shown to be pathogenic.
Okay. Yeah, because out of my 100 clients, I see like around 70% of the clients are infected with H. pylori.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is why I was asking.
Okay. Of course.
So like after taking the test, you're saying like you have some mobile application to do do's and don't do's. Like it's like what we get it from the app.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the app is actually, especially with this update we just made this week, it's kind of the central point for the whole experience. So the app is where you'd be telling us about what you're eating during that sampling period, symptoms you're experiencing, how you slept, your exercise, all these different things. There's also the ability to ask any question related to intestinal health and beyond in our app. And you'll get answers that are only coming from peer-reviewed literature, so you can make sure you can trust it. From there, the app and the report they're also connected. So the app will know about your gut health score, it'll know about your diversity, and it can give you recommendations on what to do. And most of those recommendations are diet focused, supplement focused, which includes some probiotics if it makes sense, as well as some lifestyle techniques. So for example, if we see that you told us you had a lot of anxiety related symptoms, we might suggest some breathing techniques, for example, or other lifestyle techniques as another source of way to address the issue.
Okay. So we have to start the using app before giving the sample, or like after taking the sample?
Normally at the same time. So the way it works is that your instructions to even collect the samples are actually in the app. So the app will be able to guide you through, okay, how long do I shake the sample? When is the next day that I need to collect it? And it'll also remind you, hey, let us know what your stool looked like on the day that you collect your sample. Tell us about your symptoms. So it'll guide you through the process. And then once you have your results, you receive a PDF report, but you also receive the results in your app, and then the app will be able to help answer any questions you have, or you can meet with someone on our team to explain things if you need to.
Okay. Do we have any sample report just to show us like what is the score, something? Because we have like a Bugspeak Rich Biome Index. Every company has their own score, so I just
right. So this is the link to the sample report.
Okay. And can we share it over here?
Yes. So this is essentially what you should expect to see when you receive your results. So the top part here is really a summary of everything that happened. So what does your microbiome look like? What do your symptoms look like? What are the things that are looking quite good? What are some areas that you should maybe focus more attention on? So this is kind of what to expect in the rest of the report in more detail.
Okay.
Whereas the top recommendation is looking at all the advice that we gave you and providing you with the recommendation that has the most overlap. So what's the probiotic that seems to be providing you the most value? What are some prebiotic or supplements that can support that probiotic, and what are some foods that can support that probiotic as well? And then we have our top most important scores. So your gut health score, which is really how we're comparing your gut to people with inflamed conditions. Stability, which is unique to us because we're taking those 3 samples. So how similar or dissimilar does each sample look to one another? Diversity is quite standard, and the Firmicutes and Bacteroides ratio is also quite standard. So we include all that information right in the report. And that's essentially the first page. From there, we'll give an overview of your symptoms that you told us about, any trends that we noticed that you might not notice, just so that everything is super clear. We can tell you about your nutrition summary, so things you are eating, how inflammatory your diet is. If you're eating a lot of processed foods, for example, it's more inflammatory, so we can highlight that for you. Making sure you're eating a lot of fiber, of course. And then also any food triggers you might have. So if you're eating certain foods and we notice you're having certain symptoms, we can start to notice if there's a pattern developing, and we can let you know certain areas of your diet that you should consider avoiding to see if it'll help your symptoms. And then from there, it's really recommendations. So we'll give you recommendations for symptoms you might be experiencing, such as abdominal pain or bloating, both supplements and probiotics, if they make sense. We can give you recommendations for your microbiome. So if you don't have the bacteria that are producing vitamin B12, if your diversity is low, if your FB ratio is off, we can give you recommendations for each of those things. And then lastly, we'll give you dietary recommendations. So, as you know, when you eat one food, it's not only impacting one bacteria, which is, something we have to educate a lot on.
Because this is generally based on the gut microbiome, but even some people eating the same food, whatever recommended in the app, doesn't match with their symptoms, because they have some inflammation as well. So we have to observe what is happening when we are eating, right?
Absolutely. And it's super important, because these recommendations are generated, again, using peer-reviewed literature, using your unique microbiome. And the whole idea here is that these recommendations are focused on shifting your overall microbiome in the right direction. So we really try to make it so it's supporting the overall community, not just how do I address this one bacteria. We do give some bacteria specific recommendations. You know, if you see that you're missing something, or if you potentially have a pathogenic bacteria, we can give you some ways to avoid certain foods that they like. But in general, we're focused on the overall microbiome. So that's kind of the recommendation section. Then from here, we have the microbiome metabolic potentials. So this is essentially the activities your bacteria are performing. So are your bacteria providing short chain fatty acids? Are they breaking down fiber? Are they producing vitamins, breaking down lactose? And then we have a couple of different ones. We have all the different B vitamins that are critical as well. And then
because most of the people are trying to take vitamins and minerals if they are deficiency, instead of fixing, because our body has capable of doing all the minerals and vitamins.
Yes.
But because we lose all our gut microbiome and we are losing good gut health, we are not able to make the like vitamins and minerals, right?
Right.
So instead of taking supplementations, we have to fix the gut as well, because even if you are taking supplementation, if it is not absorbed properly, there is no use, right?
I'm so happy you said that, because a lot of the time we have to educate people that one, their body is actually capable of producing these things. It's just that, like you said, we've lost a lot of that capability because of the diet that we're having. So diet is really the key way, because if you're just taking a supplement, it's almost like a band-aid. You know, you're not really getting the root cause of the issue or the inefficiency. So really focusing in on the diet as a way to improve the gut, to improve the overall metabolic profile is super important. Completely agree.
Yeah, but initially as a starter, means if someone is not capable of doing all these, because it's like a cycle, right? If we have deficiencies, we can't, our gut health is very difficult to recover from it. So we need a supplementation as initial support, and then we have to improve our gut health so that we can reduce our supplementations intake from outside,
right?
So that our body can make it.
Completely. It's figuring out that balance between how do we get you to a good state, a stable microbiome, so it can start to sustain itself, and then eventually supplements can actually be like a supplement to your diet, not just a replacement, which a lot of people think it's a replacement.
Yeah.
Which is the problem. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Certain supplements like vitamin D is fine, because based on the weather where you live, and that is okay. But taking all type of supplements instead of getting from the food is not a right idea.
Yeah. And I mean, I lived in Canada, in Montreal, for about 6 years, and it was very clear my vitamin D levels were very low. Every blood test I was taking. So while I was there, I was always taking vitamin D, vitamin K2. Those were super, super helpful for me. But yeah, you have to consider the regional considerations too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but even in India, it's too hot climate. But I can see I get reports for the kids as well. They are also very deficient in
okay.
Yeah, so I think body stopped making it.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things that it takes a while for you to start seeing it reflected on a blood test. If you start taking a vitamin D supplement and a week later you take a blood test, it probably won't look any different. But after a couple of months, people really notice a difference. It's one of those things where after 2-3 months, all of a sudden you realize you feel better, and then you're able to actually see it in a blood test. So it takes a while to start being absorbed and your body understanding it again. But yeah, vitamin D deficiency is huge. It's quite common.
And even the services what we are providing, it's all I want to fix the root causes instead of addressing the symptoms, what doctors will do always.
Right.
Yeah, but the people are not understanding it, saying okay, that many days we have to wait to cure this disease. If we go to the doctor, they will give the pills, so it will be cleared in one day, right? Because they are hiding symptoms instead of curing the disease.
Right. and I think that's a big part of our philosophy too, is that we want you to make small, consistent changes, not just change everything tomorrow, because I'm sure in your experience, if you do that, then 2 weeks later they're back to the same they were before, everything falls apart.
Yeah, they do like improper diet to lose the weight. They will lose 5 to 10 kgs and they will gain again 15 kgs in a month.
Right.
Yeah,
It's definitely very common.
yes.
Okay, well, I mean, I can show you just quickly the other parts of the report
Yes,
too, because here is where we do the different categories. So here's the pathogenic bacteria. So you'll see Helicobacter pylori is here.
Oh, yes.
And then we have other categories, such as, do you have the bacteria that have been associated with inflammatory bowel disease? So we can show you. And then we'll also say, like, these icons, what they're representing is, are our food recommendations helping you address this? Are these bacteria associated with other diseases? So you'll see this symptom. This is the IBD symbol. This is the systemic inflammation symbol. So again, similar idea, bacteria associated with systemic inflammation, bacteria associated with metabolic syndrome. Then we have the general health and wellness. So do we see any of the probiotics in your gut, any of the psychobiotics, so bacteria that are good for your mental health, essentially? So do they produce norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, these types of things? And then any anti-inflammatory bacteria. And then the final section of the report is really a summary of all the bacteria we found in your samples. So even if we don't have a category to put it in, maybe the research honestly just isn't there for us to make a claim about it. We can tell you how much of that bacteria we saw and whether or not it's in the typical range that we see from samples we receive. So that's kind of the main core of the report. So this goes on for a couple of pages, and then there's essentially some more information, foods you logged in the app, and any definitions if you're ever curious about what certain vitamins are, and that's really it. So that's kind of the report in its entirety.
It's a very big report. Means like it takes time to
yeah, but that's why we organize in the way we do, where the first page is the summary, and then there's 3 pages of recommendations. And then that's really it. Those are the most important sections, because we'll even tell you right on the first page, do you have the bacteria breaking down fiber or producing short chain fatty acids? And if not, we'll give you the recommendations for all those things that you might be needing support. So the first page and the recommendation pages are the most important. The others are really for when you want to really, really dig into the details, if you're curious.
Awesome. I have a general question from my users always. Most of the people are asking, like, why we need different type of probiotic foods like kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, those things. Before we are eating, means like in India we are eating only curd, like a yogurt.
Right.
But I see like most of the people are now suffering with gas, bloating, IBS, IBD, these diseases. So I want to know, from your perspective, why we need different types of probiotics right now?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to diversity, right? So probiotics that you're getting from a pill versus probiotics you might be getting from food. Some foods like yogurt have enough of the bacteria for them to be considered a probiotic, like in the technical sense. Other foods like sauerkraut and kimchi, they have probiotic bacteria, but it's not necessarily true that they always have enough of those probiotics to actually have, let's say, a medical or a systemic effect. But the beauty of those probiotic foods is that they have other things too. They have the nutrition, they have the prebiotics, they have the fermented products as well, which provide a lot of the material these bacteria need to produce metabolites. So you get a lot of additional benefit from eating foods with probiotics than the supplement, because it just provides so much more. And a lot of the time you see things get a little bit more better absorbed when they come from food as opposed to when they're coming from a pill format. But a lot of it comes down to really diversity, wanting to have a good variety of the different types of bacteria that you're being exposed to, whether they be dietary or environmental. because they all have different functions. A lot of the good bacteria are very generally related to reducing inflammation, managing hunger, and these types of things. But they do have unique areas of focus as well.
Okay. So I saw like an article saying like normally they say like 94% of serotonin is made in our stomach. So is it related to gut microbiome as well?
Yeah. So those bacteria are actually what we're talking about in our psychobiotic section of the report. So what we're showing in that section, and I can share this here. So essentially any of the bacteria that have this happy face here, they are serotonin producers. So Bacillus bacteria, Enterococcus bacteria, Lactobacillus, which is one of the most common probiotic bacteria you can find, as well as these following ones here. A lot of that serotonin is important because it's a signaling product, so it can have downstream effects on the body, whether that be mental health or something else. But the microbiome is also producing all these other different products. So dopamine, gamma aminobutyric acid, so GABA, and then norepinephrine. So huge impacts definitely from that.
So people are nowadays people we see like there are like so many people are suffering with anxiety, depression. So those all are related to gut, right?
Yeah, definitely, because the mind and the gut are connected literally through the vagus nerve, but they're also connected, through the various products that are being produced in the gut microbiome itself. So a lot of the times when I talk to people, that example of when you see certain foods and your stomach might make noise because you want to eat it, or you feel anxious and then you might feel like you have to go to the bathroom. Like these are kind of these everyday experiences that just show how deeply connected our mind and our gut are. And even considering the microbiome itself as an organ is something that's becoming quite common. That whole idea that your microbiome is the second brain, for example, is quite popular now, and then one that we tend to find ourselves talking about a lot. There's over 100 million neurons in our gut, so that's more than your spinal cord.
Yeah.
So it's very significant, and I think the summary I always tell people is that your gut does a lot more for you than just digest. It's doing more than breaking down food and absorbing nutrients. It's producing those neurotransmitters we talked about, which are transmitting signals across the body, and that is why it has such a big effect on health and well-being, whether it be regulating your mood, emotions, behavior. It's all quite connected to the gut.
Awesome. So do you recommend this test to who are already healthy and no issues?
Mm-hmm.
So
We have a lot of healthy people. Yeah. We have a lot. So for example, this past summer, we had an athlete go to the Olympics. So we have people who are, very, very healthy. They're professional Olympic level athletes. And then we have people who are quite sick with active disease. And then we have people who are in the middle who are just, maybe relatively healthy, but there are areas that they want to optimize and they have a lot of questions. So they want to take a test or they want to use the app to understand what to do next. So really it's quite flexible to be able to help you wherever you are in your journey, because the end goal of it is to make you more confident on the next step. So for an athlete, it's to get, that 0.1% more performance. For someone that's dealing with, let's say, Crohn's disease, it's understanding, how to advocate for themselves to a practitioner, to find areas of their diet that they can improve on that won't cause them additional symptoms. The goals can definitely change, but the tool can help with all of those.
Awesome. Is there any age limit, like minimum age and maximum age, something like that?
We typically recommend that people are older than 14 to start microbiome testing, and a lot of that just has to do with data and consent. We don't have a maximum age. We've actually have people in their 80s that are taking our test. without any issue. All of that is completely fine.
Awesome. Okay. Nice. Let me check if I miss anything.
Sure. Yeah. No worries. And these are really good questions too. I appreciate you coming up with the list.
Yeah, these are all questions asked by my clients and my subscribers who watch my
They're
video.
asking good questions.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
So I was also learning, and I'm also exploring more because of it.
No, it's great.
Yeah. So I want to know, like, what trends do you see emerging in gut health research that may impact how we understand and manage it in the future?
Yeah. So this, in terms of one of my favorite areas and my favorite topics surrounding gut health, I like this whole idea of using the microbiome to help you get more out of your nutrition. So the same person might eat the same food, but one person might get fat, one person might lose weight. The microbiome isn't the only thing that's going to impact why that happens, but it is a huge part of it. So there's interesting research showing that if you have certain bacteria, you're not able to process certain foods as well, and you're not able to get as many usable calories out of it. And a lot of that might be translated into other things. And then another area of research is showing that we can actually use the microbiome to make you respond to medications better. So there are some cancer medications, for example, that they notice that if you take antibiotics before those cancer medications, they actually don't work as well. But if they supplement you with specific types of bacteria, probiotics, and prebiotics, and then you take those medications, you are much, much, much more likely to be a good responder to that medication and then move to a point of cancer remission a lot faster. And I think that's fascinating because it's great because it's you don't need to take more medication. It's almost like what you can simplify as a dietary supplement to make sure that these, in many cases, life-saving medications are actually able to have their effect. And I think that's super cool because the idea is it's not about using the microbiome as a replacement for therapy. It's more about how can we help it enhance other therapies that we're doing. And therapy can be medications, it could be diet changes, it can be lifestyle, but it comes down to understanding, what your microbiome looks like at that point in time.
Yeah. So, like, what was the other products we have from? Can you show me or can you tell me about the product? What if someone is ordered from the website, what they will get it?
Yeah. So when you order the microbiome test, automatically you're going to get 6 months free with the app. So you'll be able to get full access to everything. You'll be able to track all those different aspects that we discussed. And if you order the starter kit, you'll also be receiving our bathroom sensor, a bathroom beacon. So what that is a small, I don't have one. Let me see if I have it here. So it's a small device. We ask you to put it on top of your toilet. There's no camera involved or anything like that. And what it's able to do is recognize the Bluetooth signal from your phone. And when you sit down on the toilet, it can remind you to check in with the app. It can see how long you're spending on the toilet, how frequently you've gone to the bathroom, so that we can develop some trends around that. So, for example, for 4 days, you go to the bathroom once a day. For the 5th day, we see you're going to the bathroom 4 times a day. We can ask you some questions about why that might be, any additional symptoms you want to report to us, and start to show you how your trends are changing over time. Because one of the big things we noticed is, because these are chronic issues for people that have them, when the time becomes very long, you start to not notice the changes. It's hard to realize things when they happen very slowly over time, but the app can help with that. And then the other important thing is that, tracking your health is difficult. It takes work. So being able to ask people to check in with us while they're on the toilet, there's a lot less distractions. It's one of the few places where you can actually just be by yourself anymore.
Without phone.
There are very few places like that anymore. And what we noticed just on our side is that by reminding people to track when they're in the bathroom at that moment, they actually track around 6 times more. So rather than you just tracking whenever you want, or sending you a reminder at a certain time of day, building tracking into a habit you already have, like going to the bathroom, because it only takes a couple of seconds, had a huge impact on how much people track, and then how much more recommendations and personalization we can do.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you are more into the technology right now. It's like it's a very good use of technology, because I don't see anything similar with other companies doing it.
Yeah, nobody's doing what we do. Nobody's from the 3 samples to the app to the making tracking part of the bathroom experience. There's nobody else that's doing anything like this, and for me, that's a big disservice, because your microbiome is almost like this unique fingerprint that reflects your individual health status. And once we understand that health status, it's a point that we can then use for comparison and then personalization, and that's where all the benefit comes from. We're not trying to say you're in this category, so you get this group of recommendations, or this category and you get this one. It doesn't work like that at all. The recommendations are generated completely based on your profile.
Awesome. I think we covered most of the questions.
Cool.
It's done. Yeah. Do you have anything to share, like extra for my clients, like to improve gut health, some recommendations or some suggestions or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing when it comes to the microbiome is that on paper, it's actually pretty simple what you need to do to improve your gut health, right? You need to...
It's like eat curd, eat this, eat that.
Yeah.
That's all.
And everybody knows those things, but if it was that simple, then just telling someone you need to get more sleep and you need to exercise, everybody on the planet would be healthy. I wish it was that simple.
Yeah.
But in general, all those things, eating a diverse range of foods, more fiber, fermented foods, hydration, exercise, stress, these are very important. And on the other side of things, like what not to do, making sure you're not overusing antibiotics, unless you really have to, avoiding processed foods, alcohol, being aware of your food intolerances, the amount of sugar you're consuming. All of these things are very important, but it's all about understanding that and what it means specifically for you, because eating good food will need something different for each person.
Yes.
And that's kind of what your guidance and also the app is really all about. So I think these two things come together really well, because we can help provide the microbiome context, and you can provide the historical context of knowing your clients and kind of what their needs are.
Awesome. Yeah, because someone's superfood is someone's poison.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even in family also, like someone can see when we have like H. pylori, me and my wife are suffering with H. pylori.
Right.
But we don't know that, because I have that problem from years. But I was like, whenever I eat food, I feel like a little bit hotness inside my stomach, and I feel like emergency to go to the bathroom after eating the food. So I was doing that and continuously, and my parents also like used to it. After eating, he will go to the bathroom. They know.
And it was just routine.
Yeah, that become routine. But after I moved to Canada, I was like, okay, I just want to test it, because I am paying insurance over here. So I was like, okay, I just go and test it. Then they tested it and they told me like, okay, you are infected with H. pylori. And they said like, maybe your wife is also having H. pylori. Then I said like, no, she don't have any symptoms. Then we tested both. She has H. pylori. I'm also having H. pylori, but she don't have any symptoms at all. Zero symptoms. Yeah, but I was the only one who is suffering with the H. pylori. So both of us took the antibiotic treatment and cured it. Now I'm fine. I don't have any issues.
Right.
So see, it's like both are having the same problem, but one is having symptoms, another one is not having symptoms.
Yeah, it's amazing how it can work. And I mean, like a much less serious example that we get a lot is everyone's told, if you eat an apple a day, keep the doctor away. Apples are the best thing you can eat. But for some people, if you have irritable bowel syndrome, apples are FODMAP foods, so sometimes the fiber that's in the skin can cause you to have diarrhea. And there have been so many people who we've worked with, they use the app and they say, I'm eating all this stuff, you need a lot of fruits. And then we say, okay, well, the app is saying you need to stop eating apples, because when you have apples, the next day you have looser stools. And a couple weeks later, they can't believe, they're like, really, that was the problem? Something as simple as that you would never even think that could be causing you issues if you're not in this field. So yeah, it comes down to the uniqueness of the individual.
I wish we have your services in India as well.
Me too. I want to expand more as soon as possible, because right now the test itself is only available in the US and Canada. We're making the app more available in different countries soon, so that, because it's available in some parts of Asia, some parts of Europe right now. Most of it just has to do with data privacy regulation, making sure that we're doing everything properly before we open the app in those places. But yeah, I would love to be able to offer our test in different countries, definitely.
Yeah, at least if we have app based on the user input data, maybe we can do something to improve their health.
You're right.
Because you said like your all data is based on North America, right? To the sample.
No, I mean, most of the data is relatively international. The only scores, some of the disease databases we use are a little bit more North American. But again, people that are having these diseases tend to look similar. So
yeah, you mentioned that, like, see, disease data is similar most of the time. It's common, right? Yeah,
right.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. I think we got almost 1 hour.
Beautiful. No, and my pleasure too. I'm happy, and I hope it's valuable to both you and everyone that you're working with. And please let me know if there's anything else we can do to support. If you need any social media information, I know you're very talented at this stuff, so I just let us know if there's anything that could be very helpful, whether it's a session like this, images, anything like that.
Sure.
We're happy to help.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for your knowledge, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for your support, and we're excited to support you. And I don't know if this recording will automatically be sent to you, because I wasn't able to add you as a host, but as soon as it is ready, it normally takes, because this was an hour, it might take some time to process. I'll make sure to send it to you, so you have everything.
Please send it to me so that I can share it with my subscribers.
I'll send it as soon as I have it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, my love. Take care.
Bye.